All right. Hope everybody is doing well out there. I'm just going to wait to see if anybody jumps on. If you do, if you are seeing this, send me a message. Just enter the chat. Just want to see if anything's going to pop up. Otherwise, I think we'll just kind of get right into this. I had somebody asking about the background here. So I am just in my unfinished basement. Where are we? So right here, this little white thing here, that's actually my drafting table. So I do a lot of artwork on there. Behind that, this is like an old school light table and a bunch of reference stuff on there. And then behind me here, this is where our little 11-year-old does her arts and crafts and whatnot. So that's kind of what all that stuff is. So for today, I'm going to be going over 10 things that you can do right now to start defining your aim. All right. So we'll just get right into it. So number one would be stop doing the things you know are wrong that you could stop doing. All right. So the idea here is that there are things that you know you shouldn't be doing. And what a very good example of that is when you do something, there's that little voice in your head, your conscience, that kind of kicks in and says, maybe I shouldn't do this, right? So a perfect example of that would be with our health and fitness clients who, they have a diet they're supposed to follow, and then something comes up and they're like, you know what, I probably shouldn't eat this, but I'm going to anyway, right? We have that conversation with ourselves fairly frequently. And those are the kind of things that you want to stop yourself from doing. All right. Now, there's kind of this idea that's kind of going around the internet with health and fitness professionals. And it's that, if you do fall off the wagon, then to just sort of pick up the next day and just get right back onto it. And I mean, that's perfectly okay, except for the fact that we're now reinforcing poor behavior, a poor pattern of behavior. And we don't want to reinforce those habits. So my question would be, sure, it happens once, maybe it happens once a month, you fall off the wagon for whatever reason. And then you're like, well, that's okay. I'll just get back to it tomorrow. Or maybe you skip a workout and you're like, that's fine. I'll just do it tomorrow and catch up, or I'll work twice as hard or something like that. And, fine. But the problem becomes when we start doing that more frequently. When all of a sudden it doesn't happen once a month, it starts to happen twice a month, or it starts to happen weekly. And we get into this response where, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. The problem is now we've got a bad habit that is actually going to prevent us from being able to do the things that we want to do and move us towards our goal. All right. Now, some of the things are very difficult to stop doing, right? You could be resentful, you could be angry, and those are the types of things that are very difficult to stop doing. A good example would be something like smoking. Maybe you're struggling with that. And that's an interesting example because it actually lends itself to the sort of the habitual habit. All right, that's a little redundant, but it lends itself to the habit of smoking. So you have a smoke break at work, for example. So you tend to smoke on those breaks. And it also lends itself to the actual chemical dependency that happens, or the chemical relationship that happens in your brain as well. So those things can be very difficult to change, but you understand that we need to make some effort into actually start to change these things. And in order to do that, we need to think about the things that we can affect fairly easily. So another example might be if you show up late for work, you tell your boss or whoever it is, sorry, there's traffic, fine if it happens, once a month. And then, suddenly it starts to happen multiple times a week, and it happens again tomorrow. Now, you may not understand why there's traffic, but you can understand that maybe you need to leave a little bit earlier. So that's a small thing that you can change to help with your goal, being on time for work. And so starting with these small things, like I said, it maybe doesn't give you a clear picture of what the reality of the situation is, but it's going to give you a good start, right? So changing some of these small things, giving yourself the opportunity to actually be successful with your goals is going to give you a good start. Maybe you don't understand why, and that's perfectly fine, but getting started is better than not getting started at all. The next thing that I recommend is actually creating a schedule for yourself. Now, I know that everything that happens throughout the day can be very difficult. There's a lot of variables, a lot of things that interact, and it can be hard to manage those things. But one thing you can, or two things that you can manage quite easily, is what time you're going to start your day at and what time it ends at. So sometimes the end we can't figure out as easily as the beginning, but we can definitely be responsible for the beginning of our day. So maybe you need to wake up a little bit earlier than you were so you can actually get ahead of yourself and start your day a little bit earlier. So that kind of goes into creating a schedule. All right, so what time are you going to start at? What time would you like everything to be done at? And what are the things in between that are going to kind of get in the way of you actually accomplishing your goal? If we stick with that weight loss example, because it's easy and straightforward, maybe you have a lunch meeting where you're going to need some sort of food prepped ahead of time to negate the fact that you might be eating something that you shouldn't be eating, or maybe you just need to adjust your calories in some way to accommodate for what's going on at that event or whatever it is. Either way, the whole point of creating a schedule for yourself is so you can actually start to have a negotiation with yourself. So you can kind of have an idea of what you should be talking about with yourself so you don't actually tear yourself down, so that you can actually be productive with your life and being productive towards your goals. Now, when you create a schedule and you've got a successful plan, what tends to happen is you create this kind of slow spiral upwards, right? A lot of beneficial things start happening. One of the things we see all the time in the health and fitness industry is the person who comes into the gym, they've never come before, they have no experience, and then they say to you, I want to lose 10 pounds by whenever, next month, it doesn't matter. I'm going to come every day, or I'm going to come 6 days a week. Okay, so this person's never worked out before, and they're going to come 6 days a week to accomplish this goal by the end of the month. Now, you may have created a schedule here, but you might be actually working against yourself, because what tends to happen is you don't make it those 6 days. Maybe you do for the first week, but then next week you're only in twice. The week after that, you're in 3 times. The week after that, maybe it's 4, but it was a struggle. Instead, when we create a schedule for ourselves, we need to understand how much we can actually do in the time that we're giving ourselves. So in that week, maybe it's better to start with just committing to 2 days to the gym. Maybe 2, maybe 3, depending on what your schedule is like throughout the week. Now, the way this spirals upwards is it is a lot easier to add a day than it is to take one away. When we start taking things away, we run into this issue where we feel like we're failing, right? We feel like we haven't accomplished the things that we wanted to accomplish. But if we start small, remember I talked about, think of the things start with the small things and start with the things that you can affect. When we start small, it is a lot easier to add a day. So maybe you start with coming twice a week, and you do that for a couple weeks, and you're like, you know what? I think I can get a 3rd day in, maybe a day on the weekend or something. And you add that 3rd day, you're feeling successful. Now you're coming more times to the gym than you had originally planned. And then maybe in 2 months, you're coming 4 days a week. Maybe you're doing 2 days in a row, taking a day off, doing another 2 days in a row, and then taking a break on the weekend. And the nice thing about that is those breaks are actually going to give you time away from the gym so you can focus on all the other things, all the other variables that are happening in your life. All right. So create a schedule that is manageable for yourself and create a schedule that is going to breed success rather than tear yourself down. The next thing you need to do when you're coming up with all this stuff is actually to clarify your thoughts. So, what are you really trying to accomplish for yourself? One of the best ways of doing this is by actually just writing them down. Write things down. Like, Dear Diary is a great way to end your day, right? So, when we start to write things down, we're clarifying our thoughts. It's almost like just kind of washing your brain of all the stress that it's been going through. And the other thing it's going to do is it's going to help clarify some of the things that might be disturbing to you. Even if you don't know what the issue is, when you start writing, it tends to bring a light to those problems. And it's going to end up giving you a problem, but eventually you're going to find a solution as well. All right. So the best way to do that is through communication, whether that's on paper. It could be like I keep where's my phone? I keep a notes thing on my phone open all the time that I just write into. And that's been quite successful for me. So I'll just pop open my phone and just kind of write things down throughout the day, some things that I'm thinking about, things I don't want to forget, or what I should be help to just sort of, I come up with a problem, or maybe a client asks me a problem that I need to think about. And so I'll start writing it down, just kind of write my thoughts down on what my initial answers are before actually getting into it and doing some hard work on them. So write things down. Moral of the story is writing things down can be a really great way to help clarify your thoughts and help bring light to other problems that might be in the way of creating achieving your goals. The fourth thing would be take a meaningful path. So what this means is, the pursuit of happiness has been something that has been around the internet for a long time. And the problem with making, like, say your goal was happiness, the problem with happiness is it's just so fleeting. You have it at one moment, and then it tends to sort of flutter away. You tend to lose it over time. It's here for a moment and it's gone the next. We can't necessarily define the things that make us happy as well. So I tend not to think about happiness, but I'd rather take up something meaningful. So something purposeful, something that's important to you. All right. Now, with purpose is going to come happiness. When you work for something that's meaningful, you're going to find purpose in it, and you're going to find happiness with it as well. Now, obviously, there's going to be things you're going to need to overcome. There's going to be things that you're afraid of. And these are the things that we need to stop avoiding. You need to stop avoiding what you need to do. In fact, you can start asking yourself a few questions. If I didn't do the thing that I'm afraid of, what would my life be like? This is actually an exercise I'd like to go through with my clients. If you don't lose those 10 pounds by the end of the month, what is your life going to be like? If you don't accomplish these goals that you've set out for yourself, what is your life going to be like? And then flip it around. If you do accomplish these things, what would your life be like? Where would you be? And how would you treat yourself? If you treated yourself like you were taking care of yourself, what would you do? Now, there's this really interesting thing that the psychologists have figured out, and it's that we tend to take care of others and even our pets far more than we take care of ourselves. So here's an example, and we'll continue with the weight loss diet thing. So you've got a dog, right? He needs exercise, so you take him for a walk, right? You've got a dog, he's got to eat. He gets 2 scoops of kibble in the morning and 1 at night. You follow that schedule fairly religiously. It happens for you. It happens for that dog. And you're doing a very good job of taking care of that dog. When it gets sick, you take the dog to the vet. The vet recommends some sort of medication or whatever it might be. It usually costs an astronomical amount of money. You buy it anyway. You follow the directions on the thing the vet gave you. And you do that until you run out. You refill it if you need to, or maybe the dog gets better. However, we don't do that for ourselves. Instead, we know we need exercise, but we're not willing to go for a walk or take ourselves for a walk. We're not willing to put in a little extra effort to get to the gym. We know that we're supposed to get 2 scoops of kibble in the morning, but we'll give ourselves 3 because you're feeling a little extra hungry, right? We get sick. We don't go to the doctor. We kind of wait it out and hope to get healthy again, right? So take care of yourself as if you're going to be taking care of somebody else. Or take care of yourself like you would take care of your dog might be a better way of putting it. So I touched on this earlier, but you need to face your fears. You need to come forward and just be like, look, this might make me feel uncomfortable, but right at the edge of that uncomfort is when we're going to do most of our learning. So you may be suffering unbearably because you're not putting yourself up against your fears. You need to come to terms with them and you need to face them head on. And look, if you stopped wasting the opportunities that are in front of you simply because you're afraid of them or simply because they're challenging, we really have no idea how efficient people could get. All right. The next thing that I would recommend would be to specify your goals. Okay. Have a clear plan on what those goals are. Set up valuable aims for yourself. Realize you're going to have to put some effort into those goals, into those challenges, into your life, and ask yourself, if you could have the life you wanted, what would you want from your friendships? What would you want from your career? What would you want from your family? And how will you regulate your mental health and your physical health? All right. So what do you want from all of those? What do you want from your friends, your career, your family? What do you want out of your physical health? What do you want out of your mental health? And how are you going to abstain from your bad habits that could tear some of those relationships down? Build a vision of how you would want your life to be and how to slowly start moving towards what that life would look like. Take small steps and take them frequently and keep moving. What I like to do with my clients is we play this exercise. I do this with my team a lot as well. In fact, we go over it like literally every day. It's almost the first thing we do in the morning. Is we establish an aim. Where do they see themselves in the next year with a business or with their career? And we break that down. Okay, so I'm going to break this down into a 90-day goal. So let's create a 90-day goal for yourself. Now that has to be an important goal because you only get 4 90-day goals every year. And then I break that down into a monthly goal. So by the end of the month, where should you be to move forward towards that 90-day goal? Then I'll take that monthly goal and I'll break it down to weekly achievements, right? So these are the small steps that are going to move you towards your ultimate goal. And they could be very, very small things, or it could be a little bit more challenging within those weeks. But the point is, once you've finished all of those weekly achievements, you should achieve your goal, right? It's a very linear process. It doesn't always happen linear, but it gives you the framework, right? So that framework of whatever that bigger picture is, that's what we want to really work on and break things down for. So you want to break it down into the primary things that have to occur in order to accomplish whatever that bigger picture is. So you want to sort of reverse engineer your goals. Break down those achievements. They call this a micro process. So you create a micro process for yourself that's ultimately going to maximize that spiraling upwards that you're creating within your schedule. Now, if you have a valuable goal, the more micro processes you shift towards, the more positive the change. I'll just pause here. Christine wanted to watch or listen from the beginning. These videos will all be available like on YouTube and my Facebook page and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to watch from the beginning, you'll be able to do that as well. Now, I was talking about having a valuable goal, and the more micro processes, like the more weekly achievements that you can shift towards, the more positive the change is going to be, and the more momentum you're going to build for yourself. So you get up in the morning and you're positive about your day because you already know what you need to accomplish that day, right? Because you've got the micro process. You've got, here's where I need to be at the end of the week. Here's where I need to be at the end of the month. Here's where I need to be in 90 days, right? That whole micro process is going to get you feeling, really ready to wake up and get going. So you get up in the morning and you're more positive about the day. You're going to be excited about succeeding as much as you will be about being terrified about failing as well. So there's the two sides of it, but that fear of failing is actually what's going to drive you forward. You don't want to be paralyzed by that fear either. You need to face your fears like I talked about just a little while ago. Okay. So the question is, why do something at all? Right? Why bother having a goal? This is all, very hokey stuff. I don't need a goal. I'm just sort of going through life, floating through without any sort of purpose. Well, the reason you need a goal, and the answer is it's because you've determined it's worthwhile, right? Nobody lives without a goal, even if their goal is to do nothing at all. You've determined that that's worthwhile. And what's happening is that goal needs to be worthwhile to you. So it's going to be purposeful, right? We talked about that. You need a purposeful goal rather than a happiness-filled goal, right? So you look at what people view and you look at what people value, right? And then what you end up doing is you take this weird sort of structural analysis of your existence and the human existence overall, and you decide, this is how I'm going to specify my goal, because this is what I feel is important to the human experience and my experience, and I've created a structure for that. So to make this happen, some of the things you're going to need around you is you're going to need, family, you're going to need friends, you're going to need a career goal for sure. And you're going to have to pay some attention to your emotional and physical health. If you don't have these things, you're going to have a lot of suffering, and it's going to be far more difficult to actually accomplish any of these things that you want to do with your life. Now, look, we don't get to choose who our family is for the most part, but if you do have a poor family situation, you may need to repair that at least to the point where it's not tearing you down. So it's not stopping you. Your friends, who do you want around you? Who's going to support you? And at the same time, who's going to keep you in check? Who's going to give you that kick to the gut when you need it, right? A career goal. You need to be progressing through your career, not just having the job that you show up to and sort of clocking in and clocking out, whatever it is. And then you need to be self-aware. So you need to understand what's causing you emotional distress, and you need to have some sort of self-awareness of what your physical health is like as well, so that you actually are healthy enough to be striving forward towards what your goals are. All right. And while you're doing all of that, this is number 6 now. Who do you want to be? Now, this is an interesting question to ask yourself. And spend some time focusing on that. Like, who do you really want to be? Who would your younger self look up to? And try to be that person. Try to be that person for your younger self. What would that person be doing? What career did that person have? Or would that person have? What shape would they be in? What is their physical and emotional health like? Do they have a good family life? Do they have a good friend kind of core network around them? Try to find out who that person is. Write it down. And then decide how you're going to pursue to become that person that your younger self needed. Now, while you're doing that, you can see all of these steps kind of build upon one another. You're going to need a mode of accepting who you are. That's something you're going to need to adapt. There's a responsibility for your own life and the people around you. Right. So we talked about family and friends and your career goals and your own personal, mental, and physical health. That's you being responsible for yourself. And as soon as you start accepting responsibility for the things that happen around you, you're going to run out of excuses for yourself, and you're going to just start doing the things you need to be doing to move yourself towards your goals. Now, this is a really interesting thing. So prior to the quarantine and whatnot, I was working in management with a large fitness company, and I took responsibility for everything that happened in that club. I was responsible for everything that was going on in that gym. And by doing that, by taking on that responsibility, I was able to actually just get all of the things done that needed to be done in the day. So if I had a colleague who was not performing as well as they could, it was my responsibility to figure out how I could make them better. All right. And doing that, so taking responsibility for all of the things around you and all of the people around you, that's going to create a lot more meaning for yourself. And on the flip side, it's also going to shelter you against your own vulnerability. So you can think about that for a minute. Think about what that really means. Shelter yourself against your own vulnerability simply by taking responsibility. So number 8, you're going to need to learn from your mistakes. Now, clearly, when we do all of these things, we're going to make mistakes along the way. When we're accepting who we are, when we're thinking about the person we want to be or who our younger self would look up to, when we're trying to specify our goals, when we're trying to find a meaningful and purposeful path, when we're clarifying our thoughts, definitely when we're creating the schedule, and definitely when we're trying to stop doing the things we know we shouldn't be doing. That's all going to lead to learning from your mistakes. You want to look at your plan for success as though you are a friend to your plan and not just the person going through that plan. Are you the person who is going to nurture that plan, or are you the person who's going to disrupt that plan? Are you going to get in your own way, or are you going to be able to get out of your own way? If you take on the consequences of your errors and learn how to change accordingly to the consequences, you progress in life. That's how we learn things, right? We make a mistake, we learn from that mistake, and we use that experience of making the mistake to be more successful when those situations come up again later on in life. That's how we learn. That's the whole learning process. For example, in school, you didn't study math, so you failed math, so you got to do it over again. Hopefully you learn that you need to study math so you can pass the class and move on, right? Famously, there's this wonderful analogy about getting whacked over the head with a stick. If you've ever been frustrated with someone talking to them and said, oh God, I wish I could just, smack them over the head and knock some sense into them. This is how the world knocks sense into us. It gives us a problem. We fail at it. We learn from how we failed and we move forward the next time it comes up. Now, that's going to require you to have a conversation with yourself, right? So you have a plan. You're not your own servant. You're a friend to your plan. You're not just forcing yourself to do these things. You need to communicate with yourself, and you need to create a life for yourself. Reason with yourself and make yourself believe in the things that you need to believe in or ought to. Now, there's definitely things that are going to come along that are going to kind of knock you down a little bit, but you need to have that belief in what you're doing is meaningful and what you're doing is purposeful. So when you decide that something is important, make sure you can justify it. Make sure that in the face of every possible thing that might come up against it, you can justify your purpose. You can justify your meaning. Now, here's something that happens all the time, right? So people are cracking their own whip, right? They get motivated. They watch a Jocko video and they go work out or whatever they do. Or they think they're going to go work out. And then they start procrastinating. And they're like, oh, shoot. Well, I want to go work out, but I don't have running shoes. I don't have the right clothes. The gym's too far away. So then they watch Pumping Iron and they think they're going to get motivated again. But then they procrastinate because they don't have a gym membership or there's something getting in the way. You know, I'm a little bit tired right now, right? We get motivated to do something, and then we give ourselves a million excuses not to do that thing. Rather, flip it around. Give yourself an excuse to do whatever it is you should be doing. Figure out why that's important. Have that conversation with yourself. And I'll tell you what, if you're just making excuses as to why you're not achieving the things that you should be achieving, not doing the things that you know you should be doing, not following, I mean, it ends up just being a pathetic way to live. So ask yourself what you want. All right. And the last thing that I think you should be doing is aiming high. Don't aim for something that's just out of reach. Aim high. So I talked about having to have an aim in order to do something. If you actually knew what success was, you'd want to grasp it. All right. There's a wonderful documentary out right now on Netflix in Canada. Can't remember what it's. ESPN in the States. It's called The Last Dance. It's about Michael Jordan and his career largely with the Bulls. And there's a moment in there where one of his teammates says, this guy's the best player in the NBA, and he doesn't stop practicing, right? That's because Michael Jordan's aim wasn't just to be good at basketball. It was to be the best player of all time. And take that attitude into whatever it is that you do. Be the very best at whatever it is you do, right? We're creatures that need to aim. You have an aim because it sets up the world around you. It organizes your emotions and perceptions. What you see and what you don't see. The day manifests itself as a set of challenges, and you need to be able to rise to those challenges. You need to be able to solve those challenges properly while you're progressing towards your aim. In order to progress, you need to be able to solve these challenges that appear throughout the day. You can live in the day. You can make every moment of every day meaningful. It has to have a purpose. It may not always be happy, but it will absolutely have a purpose. And that purpose is what's going to sustain your life. That's what will keep you going. This life is only lived once, and you owe it to yourself to make it count. So take up purpose, take up responsibility, and do something with it. And that is all I've got for today. I've recently joined a social media platform called ThinkSpot. I'm going to be posting a lot. I'm going to kind of handle the health and fitness aspect of that platform and have a lot of meaningful conversations about health and fitness there. There's going to be a lot less fluff, kind of all that stuff you get on like Facebook and Instagram and whatnot. So register for ThinkSpot, find me on there, and I literally just launched it yesterday, so I'll be putting a ton of content up there. So check me out there. If you like this video, feel free to share it, like it for sure, and I will see you guys tomorrow. All right, thanks for watching.